definitely like when you start to integrate your life in such a way that like every single decision kind of topples into other aspects of your marriage,
right?
Your financial life, you know, when you start to have children and all the decisions that you make that influence your children and their lives, you're like, you know, I'm sorry, but my husband can't run around just making whatever random decisions that I'm not aware of and don't have an idea of how that's going to affect our lives together.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
So to relinquish control, especially when you have spent 18 years not necessarily having control, but having insight.
True.
Having insight, I think, is a proper word. Like the idea of like, oh, we're just a whole bunch of angry, crazy women just controlling our husbands, and we need to like sit back, and in order for us to get intimacy and romance, we have to just laissez-faire, like let shit blow up. You know what I mean? To me, that's the.
Welcome to the Womanhood Lectures. My name's Yasmin.
And my name is Lyra.
Today, we're going to be talking about a book that I made Lyra read called The Surrendered Wife by Laura Doyle. And we're going to be talking about what your thoughts were on that book.
So I want to give you or paint a picture of what was happening.
Okay.
So I had my AirPods on. I was listening on Audible. It was 1 hour of my life.
Yeah.
But I was also cleaning and folding stuff. And I don't know why everything just got folded really roughly. I was banging plates. I was very triggered during the entire
And I did warn you. I was like, this book is going to so trigger you. And it would be such an incredible thing for us to talk about because I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, I text you and I was like, I don't know what I text you. I text you a whole bunch of angry emojis.
I wasted an hour and a bit of your life.
You know what? It wasn't wasted. I think it's always good to understand certain perspectives. You can kind of, and I hate the scenario we live in right now. I hate the world we live in right now because everybody puts themselves into a box and they don't allow themselves to venture into different, you know, ways of thinking and saying, you know what? I don't like that, but you know what? I can take a little bit from here and say, yes, how can I apply that to my life, my relationship, my marriage, my situation, my work, my, you know, whatever, socially, instead of saying, okay, I'm just going to shut it down altogether.
Yes.
I didn't shut it down altogether.
Okay.
It was just the sound of her voice telling me stuff that I was like,
just want to punch you in the face.
Yes.
Now. Yeah. Totally. And you know what? That's a really good point because I think what we're trying to help people do is to be able to hold two perspectives at the same time.
Right.
And be able to understand that you can have this perspective and you can have this perspective. And it doesn't necessarily make one right or wrong, but there, like a lot of life happens that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think you can take something from the book.
One thing.
Not me. I can't take anything from the book, but like, it's not that. Okay. So I think when she talks about it,
yes,
it's really from her own experience.
It is
her situation that worked for her, that was specific to her relationship. She has a specific relationship with a person. That person is obviously contributing to the relationship as well. When you're looking at that specific situation, she's missing a lot of aspects to explain to us exactly what the nature of the relationship was to begin with.
Sure.
For her to all of a sudden relinquish everything to him.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I know that you're going to talk about the points. So
Yes.
You tell me.
So I'll backtrack a little and tell you why I decided to read this book or listen to it, because I was reading another book that I've also sent to you. So the first book I was reading was called The Reclaimed Woman by Kelly Brogan, who is phenomenal. Please go follow her online. Like, she's just amazing. And I don't have any affiliation with her. I just really love her work. She's an MD. And she really talks about femininity from a perspective that I find a lot of truth in, that could sometimes be triggering for some women. And why I say that is she talks a lot about reclaiming your femininity, reclaiming the feminine as a modern woman. And she talks about everything from medications, menopause, how we appear in public, relationship, spirituality, the medical system, because she is an MD, And so she really talks a lot about so many aspects that I feel are a much more fuller picture of what we're experiencing as women. And in her book, she happened to mention this book called The Surrendered Wife. And
Did
she
she
was
hate
like,
it?
She actually said, hey, there's points in there that would be worthwhile taking a look at. And I trust her opinion. I'm like, okay, I'm going to read this book now. And then I read the book and I was like, oh my God.
I'm going to send it to Lyra.
What?
She's going to totally she's going to totally slam this book. And
absolutely. I'm like, you're going to punch me in the face, but it's okay.
No,
it's okay. But yeah,
okay.
I thought again, after I listened to it and I kind of got over my initial like, ooh, okay, that's some pretty, even for me, I'm like, ooh, she's really just relinquished quite a lot in her, what I would imagine in her marriage. Mm-hmm. And the trade-off that she says that she's gotten out of this is more romance and more intimacy and just overall like more happiness. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, I like that end product. Like, let me see what was your process to get there, right? So I'll go through the points of the book. And I mean, Laura Doyle, as far as I know, I was just reading on her. She's a stay-at-home mom, I believe. She just, found in her marriage, she's been married, I think it was 18 years or so that she said in the book as well. And so through the course of her marriage, these were some of the things that she was discovering along the way. It's kind of like she started off one way, went into her marriage, felt herself to be a feminist and a modern woman, realized that there were things that were not working for her, and decided to try a different way, a different approach. So here are the 6 points. And she really, what her goal was, again, was to get more intimacy and more romance in her relationship, in her marriage.
Got it.
And so I'll tell you what the basic principles of the book are. First one is, a wife relinquishes control of her husband's life. Now that's very broad. Second one. So let's just look at that. Relinquishing the control of your husband's life. I perceive that as, not micromanaging him. Like that's what I think that means.
That's the whole point. I think it was very vague to even mention something like that.
You're like, what does that mean exactly?
Yeah, because I mean, okay, so you decide that you're going to marry somebody, right?
Yeah.
And then you start that relationship, and like she's obviously 18 years in, so ironically, I'm 18 years in, right? Mm-hmm. So she's 18 years in. She's having an experience. Like, what does that look like? What does the control look like? What is the relinquishing the control of a man's life look? What did it look like before? Do you know what I mean?
Right.
What did you decide were going to be your shared interests or your shared experience with each other? Like, I don't know. Like, it's so vague, right?
Okay.
I don't know how to explain it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So that was point number 1, is basically relinquishing control of your husband's life. Number 2 was respecting his decisions for his life. And I thought that was really interesting. I was like, I talk a lot about, taking responsibility for your actions, for your choices.
Yeah.
And allowing the other person to also make their choices and deal with the consequences. Where I find that difficult, again, when you're in a relationship and you're in a marriage, is
every
when you make a choice,
right?
When you make a choice and a decision in your relationship, it affects the other person.
100%.
So, hello, your decision isn't just yours; it affects me too. That being said, right?
Yeah.
Like, so that's where I was kind of like, what? But I understand her point. Her point is when he makes a decision for himself about his own life, like say he wants to eat junk food all the time,
right?
And you're like, that's not healthy for you. You shouldn't be doing that,
right?
You're coming from a good place. You want to help your partner stay healthy.
Right.
But he chooses to eat McDonald's every day.
Right.
Okay. So can you let that go? Her premise her advice would be like, let him eat the McDonald's. If that's what he wants to do and that's how he wants to feed his body.
Right.
He's a grown man. Let him feed himself.
Let him make those choices.
Let him make those choices. Let him reap the consequences of those choices himself.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I I think I was a bit triggered on that part because
Yeah.
I do have and allow my husband to eat whatever the hell he wants. I don't
Right.
give a shit.
Fair enough. Fair
Okay?
enough.
Like I don't like, and but I think when it comes to like allowing just the whole word allow, it sounds to me like it's like, oh, you know, like you're
just gonna do nothing and just
Right.
let
Sit
things
back and
let things run
slide.
amok.
Unfortunately, like when you start to integrate your life in such a way that like every single decision kind of topples into other aspects
Sure.
of your marriage,
Right.
your financial life, you know, when you start to have children and all
Yeah.
the decisions that you make that influence your children and
Yeah.
their lives, you're
Sure.
like, you know, I'm sorry, but my husband can't run around just making whatever random decisions that I'm not aware of and don't have an idea of how that's going to affect our lives together.
Fair enough.
Right?
Fair enough.
So to relinquish control, especially when you have spent 18 years not necessarily having control, but having insight.
True.
Having insight, I think, is a proper word. Like the idea of like, oh, we're just a whole bunch of angry, crazy women just controlling our husbands, and we need to like sit back, and in order for us to get intimacy and romance, we have to just laissez-faire, like let shit blow up. You know what I mean? To
right.
me, that's what it felt like as I was reading that book. And I don't
okay,
think it's
fair
fair to say that all of us alpha women, because like truthfully, we might
Yeah.
not be feminists, but
You're strong women.
we're strong women, women who
Yeah.
have to bear the brunt of a lot of the stuff that goes on a day-to-day basis in our family. So work life, financial life, children, drop-offs, pickups, you know, sports. Like there's just so many angles in which we get pulled apart.
Yeah.
So to make it so, you know,
Generalized.
it's very generalized.
Okay.
I couldn't stomach it. I feel like that book should have been longer and maybe a little bit more specific.
Yeah.
And I feel
that would have
like
been helpful.
I should have wrote it. I'm just kidding. Go ahead. What's your next
Okay,
point?
next point. She practices good self-care. At least three. Try to find 3 good things a day. 3 things a day to do for yourself, for your own enjoyment. Okay, I like the idea of self-care.
I'd love to
And
self-care.
they
for
can
sure.
be tiny things. They don't have to be big things. I kind of agree with her on this. Like finding time every day to do something for yourself. We definitely preach this.
Yeah,
And we practice it. Like you go to the gym every day.
I do.
That is the thing that you really enjoy. That's for your own self-care, not just for your health, right?
Yeah,
I meditate. I do things that fill my cup.
I agree.
So I like that. I think we can kind of agree that that's a pretty decent point.
That's probably the only point that I do believe that women need to look after themselves 100%.
Yeah.
And when you do fill your cup, you do feel a lot more fulfilled in different
Absolutely.
aspects of your relationship too. I think though we have to acknowledge that not all women can do that with their lives that they live. Like I experience a lot of women who literally have no time to go to the gym or time because they're just taking on so much of the household duties and the household things, because you know with feminism we've pushed women to the workforce, but we haven't quite decided, you know, and treated women with respect to say, okay, well, you're going to go work just as much as a man, and then, you know,
Who's
come
now
home,
gonna
who's
be
going to be
taking care of
handling everything else.
Yeah.
And I think as alpha women, we tend to want to do it ourselves because we do it better. And
that's a perspective.
It
yes.
is a perspective. It is
Yeah.
my perspective. I hold it. I believe it.
Yeah.
But like, it's very difficult if your partner's not 100% on board to share in that aspect of it. Because we haven't got rid of that masculine mentality that a woman has to be in the kitchen, or a woman has to be the one cleaning the house, or a woman has to take care of the kids. Like that's still prevalent. That is still present. It is 100%.
And there are men out there that I know of that do 50% of their share of stuff. So there's also that side. I think the point is that like as a woman, it is still up to you to find that time to carve out something for yourself.
I agree.
Because really at the end of the day, you can't, again, you know, you can't fall victim to the victim mentality of like, but I can't do anything for myself, but I have no time. I have these kids and I have this. Yes, Yes, you do. And you
agree.
chose all of those things.
You know what? I'll
Right?
take a step back and I'll agree.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
And I
want to acknowledge that it is very difficult for a lot of women.
And there are certainly situations, like that's a generalized comment. And there are going to be situations where literally a woman really doesn't have the time. And I'm sorry.
It's so nice to have a bath and sit and like just soak and like read a book and listen to some music.
It is. And maybe you don't have that time.
Yeah.
But if you can carve out 5 or 10 minutes to do something for yourself, even if it's just a luxurious 5 or 10 minutes to have a coffee or your favorite something, or veg out in front of the TV, come on, everyone veges out and Netflixes at some point, or they scroll.
Yeah.
Hey, use some of your scrolling time, girl. You can.
It's true.
You can do something for yourself.
It's true.
All that stuff, that time that you spend in between your work, your you're filling it with something. You can. It's possible. Okay, so that's number 3. We're sort of okay with that one. Number 4, she practices expressing gratitude to her husband. So thanking her husband for the things that he does do, or the things that he does do well. I totally agree with this.
I can agree with that.
I think that's a beautiful thing. I think, you don't want to end up being a woman who's constantly nagging everyone around you. And you don't want to be the person who's walking into your room and finding every single thing wrong and not acknowledging every other thing that could be right.
On a note though, the husband has to be willing to understand that.
Meaning, what do you mean? Meaning
that, if you live a certain way,
mm-hmm.
And you have a conversation with your partner to say, if we're going to have the kitchen this way, this is how we're going to have the kitchen. If we're going to have the bathroom this way, this is going to how we're going to have the bathroom. Like, it's just an agreed state of being, right?
Okay.
So that's what I mean by, like, the partner has to be on board.
Okay.
To be able to
So he has to be aware of what you want and need. Right. Yes. So that's a communication. That's something that you have control over, right? You as a woman can control that, control that level of communication. And when he does do something great, or just even small things, right? Like if you notice them, it's kind of like putting on a set of glasses where you're purposefully looking for the good. You're purposefully looking for positive things to reaffirm. I mean, at the end of the day, you want a peaceful relationship. You want a good relationship. So look for the good and acknowledge it. Okay. Acknowledge it when you can, right? We do that with our kids, right? We do that positive hamburger. Right? Or the positive burrito. It's like, thank you for doing that, or I love how you did that. Here's where we can improve. So I think what she's saying is just do the first thing. Thank you for doing that. That's it. Don't critique. Don't say how it could be better. And that's a hard one. That can be a hard one because we're so used to
like controlling the scenario.
Yes. And so I agree. Like there's a level of like, can we relinquish a little bit of control in order for some of our own peace of mind? I think part of it is how we look at things. If I can look at it from the perspective of, I'm not relinquishing control because this is not a fight where I'm trying to get something back from you. Mm-hmm. What I'm aiming at is I want a completely different result. Like the control has nothing to do with feeling happy, right? It's kind of like, and I've said this to people before, and this is also a little bit triggering. Do you want to be right or do you want to be happy?
Right.
And some people say, being right would make me happy. No, it doesn't. I'm telling you, it's an empty, it's like revenge. It's like, it's empty.
I get it.
It's empty. At the end of the day, you're not really happy. You're just right. Okay, great. So now you're right. So now what? Good for you. Right. Like, where does that leave us, right? That doesn't create connection between people. So I would say that, just expressing gratitude where you can, genuinely, and then shutting your mouth and being like, that's it. I just had something nice to say to you today about that thing. Like, I think that's actually kind of nice. And I feel like it's a thing that people will reciprocate for you as well.
Yeah, I agree. Okay? Yeah. I'm not going to hate on it.
You can find good things. We'll find good things. Don't worry. All right. Number 5, a surrendered wife is not afraid to show her vulnerability and take the feminine approach. So again, this is very broad. And I think the vulnerability that she talks about in the book is, oh my God, look at your face. Your face says it all.
I just
vulnerability. What? So the vulnerability piece, I think, that she's talking about is when there are things that you want, for example, or something that you desire for your husband to show up as or give you, for example, right. Whether it's attention, affection, something, be open to actually letting him know in a vulnerable way. And I can see why she's saying it that way. And I think that why she's saying be a little bit vulnerable is because, as we've talked about, this masculine feminine dynamic where the masculine side of ourselves, as well as other people, is there to kind of rise to the occasion and be the protector and,
right.
and to help draw out your protectorship, your providership, right? That tendency to want to protect. It's kind of like how you feel about your kids, right? I want to support them and protect them. And when they come to you crying, you kind of soften and you're like, okay, well, how can I help you right now? Right? Versus when they come and they throw a temper tantrum in your face, you're like, I'm not dealing with you like that. Right? So I think part of it is that approach of like approaching your husband, as she's saying, with more vulnerability versus anger versus the nagging versus the micromanaging. And I think it's like in the delivery of drawing that out in your husband, right? Drawing him into your help me. I know it sounds crazy and it sounds very 1950s, but girls, like, this works. This works. Like, do what works sometimes. So,
okay, you want to get the 6th point? Because I have a thought.
You have a thought. Okay, so this is allow yourself to be a little bit vulnerable with him. And so take that feminine approach. And then the last one, oh no, this is going to be a really, really big one. Okay. The last one is she trusts him to handle all the household finances.
Yeah, that one like
you were like, I'm closing the book on this. I'm done. I'm out. And I know a lot of women might feel it. Yeah, I think
it was really annoying the way she was presenting it, but I took it in and I was like, okay.
So I don't think that's a bad thing if that works for you guys.
For sure.
Right. I do think that that's a nuanced point that people have to figure out in their relationship.
Of course. I just think it was very and for me, I'm in my situation, I mean, I do handle the administrative and financial aspect of our family. But it's also like, why, if it's not broken, why fix it? But at the end of the day,
fair enough.
There's that aspect of it. But then there's the other aspect of it that, comes to this whole big point that I have is that there should be a version of this book written for the surrendered husband or the husband that's coming to the table with a surrendered wife to say, your wife is going to surrender all this now. And this is my pro-woman moment. Do. Okay. Oh. Because there's this surrendered wife, this trad wife, this constant how wives are supposed to show up and stuff and that's what was triggering me. I was like, we're constantly telling wives how they need to act and wives how they need to improve. Like we got to work with this. We do a lot, and a lot of alpha women and a lot of women that unfortunately have to hustle, grind, and pound the pavement for their families. And then on top of that, do all the household chores, cook and tend to the kids and do they just have literally, it's almost like having 2 or 3 jobs. That's literally what our lives are like. And then to just make it so cut and dry, it's not so cut and dry. It's, yes, you're going to be a surrendered wife. You're going to allow all of these things to kind of come into play for your life. Here is the book for that husband. Give him the book at the same time. Give him a list of 6 things that he needs to do to make sure that this works. Do you know what I mean?
I totally get that.
And that's really where I stand. End of show.
So you need how to be the husband of a surrendered wife.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with that. That's fair. That's fair.
That's when she was talking, it was just so one-sided, and that's what I think was driving me nuts.
But here's the point. She's trying to write this book to say only you are in control of yourself. So here, ladies, I can't talk about the lived experience of my husband and what's going through his mind, but I can talk to you about what worked for me in my marriage and this idea that I'm going to do what I can within my boundary of control
Right.
as a woman. And so her way of doing it was, I'm going to surrender. I'm going to actually let him do that. And it's interesting because even in that whole section where she's talking about finances, she was like, yeah, let him make a mistake and let him flounder if he doesn't know how to do something, and let him figure out how to do it.
Shut off, it's okay. If he doesn't pay the water bill, that's okay. Like if he doesn't pay, and you're just like,
I know, and what? He'll figure it out.
And I get it. I'm not trying to say that I'm like,
again, it's another extreme version.
Again, it's just the perspective that she holds, where she's giving her own personal experience. And I've argued with a bunch of people about this.
Yeah,
everyone, and then you're gonna think that the way that I'm speaking is from my own personal experience, right? When you're speaking, it might be your personal experience. Maybe you have some good advice because you're generalizing your opinion. But for me, I feel like she's giving such a powerful personal experience that has worked for her.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, where's the longitudinal study, and how many women have you talked to, and what are the situations, and what are the individual situations that has helped? It's so unique to her that I think for you to take that entire story and be like, well, this is the 6 things that is, I think it's just, it's not.
Yeah, it's not working for you.
It's not for me to say, okay, this is the one-sided opinion and then in personal experience. I think we need to counteract that with a little bit more explanation as to how it works both sides.
I get that. And can you look at a book like that, like anything that can really trigger you, and say, where in there can I take a nugget? Where in there can I take a nugget and actually try it and see if that works in my life?
I'm just going to have 3 bubble baths a day.
The self-care is working for you.
You know what? Okay, so, on a more serious note, because I know I'm messing around a lot, but I do think that we can relinquish a lot of our control. But you know what I mean? And a lot of what we need to do if we have the support of our partners.
Yeah.
If we actually believe in them, and we believe that they're going to be there. I had posted something. It was a relevant thought, and it was a situation where this couple was married for 50 years. And in and around that 18-20 year mark, they literally were going to go through, like, she actually filed for divorce.
Oh, okay.
And he had saved the marriage because he actually understood that she needed something. Like, she needed something because they evolved over a certain period of time and they became different people, right?
Okay.
So when you look at marriage and you look at the length of time of a marriage, I think we have to look at how 2 individuals evolve together.
Makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I kind of threw that out there, and I had some people respond to the comments, and a woman responded that she was married to somebody for 20 years.
Okay.
She got a divorce. But she tried everything. She tried to be a traditional wife. She tried to push a lot of things on him, but he didn't clean, he didn't cook, he didn't help around the house. The grass outside would be yay high before it got, crazy. And there was nothing she could do. She couldn't, no matter how much she tried to relinquish, and no matter how traditional she would try to be, he was just not showing up to the table and actually doing his part. So, I think that's what I want to really hit home, is that you can surrender, but you need to make sure that you're surrendering to the right person.
Right.
That's it.
And so I totally agree with you. And so as a woman, again, you're on your own journey, how you can start to figure that out, if you even have a partner who can show up and rise to the occasion. Because really what we're doing is we're trying to create a space for someone to rise to the occasion.
Yes.
Right? Put a challenge there and see if they can meet the challenge.
Yeah. And if they don't.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. It's that's a totally different conversation if they don't, right? That is a conversation to have.
That's
at that point.
That could have made the book 2 hours long, right? For me to listen to. Yeah. It could have been more intricately written, and I'm just being a critique about it because I just felt like there was a lot of missing holes.
Yeah.
So you can throw a book and say, this is, 6 things, but I don't think it's that,
I get it. Yeah. It's not cut and dry. It is very short. It's quite generalized. And there are points in there where I was like, can I practice this? Maybe I can try a little bit of this. So here's one little way that you can practice surrendering in a way that's not really going to get the lights turned off.
Okay.
So I know that a lot of people, if your husband's driving, for example, and a lot of women talk about this, that a lot of men don't really like to ask for directions if they're lost. Now we have GPS now, but let's just say, as an example, you're driving and he's following his GPS, whatever that is, right? And you know that there is a faster way, that there is an easier way, whatever you know, whatever you think you know in that moment.
Tell him.
And you
right away.
And you and what you want to do is you want to tell him, right?
I do.
I can see it. It's on your face,
I'm
going like, I'm just going to tell him like he should just take this street, make it easier for all of us.
Did you see the price of gas? Like, are you serious?
What if you just said nothing and just let him go?
I know.
Right? So here, that's a small thing. Practice that. What if you said nothing? Just don't offer your extra 2 cents for something that's not really going to affect your life in a horrific way.
I get it.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Okay. So you're going to be 5 minutes outside or whatever. You might know a better way to do something. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to be better for your relationship to always have to put your 2 cents in about it. If you're right, you're right. Hey, you know what? If you're confident enough to know that you're right, then be confident and just be like, yeah, I know I could do something better, but like, it's driving. We're going to get there anyways.
I say we write a sequel to this book.
Oh my gosh. Can you imagine? We'll be arguing through the whole thing. I'll be like, why don't you try this? And you'll be like, are you kidding me? No. Yeah. But you know what?
You know what? I did learn a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. I like the other book better, The Reclaimed Woman.
Oh my God.
I'm actually going through it right now and listening to it.
Yeah.
I find it very impactful.
Yes. Because really what this relates to is learning how to create safety for yourself, safety in your own system as a woman, so that you can then trust other people to show up.
Right.
And that's the other piece of the pie. That's a big piece of the pie, right? Is to be able to trust yourself enough to know that I got me, so that if something does fall to shit around me with my partner, I got me.
Yeah.
It's not going I'm not going to be leaving myself in this position of like, I'm just going to surrender and let everything go to it. No, you still have to have you. Like, you still have to emotionally and mentally and energetically and spiritually have yourself.
Yeah.
So that you're not losing your crap when someone makes a mistake or when someone doesn't show up the way you want them to.
The water gets shut off.
Right.
And you can't, turn on the lights.
We're not going to let that happen. But, let him make a wrong turn when he's driving and just deal with that.
For sure.
It's those little things that you can practice that will allow you to then let bigger things go. Mm-hmm. And it's actually a really great practice because this is, again, self-care, preserving yourself. You can do this with your partner. You can do this with your kids. You can do this with your friends. You don't always have to be sort of like, I guess, micromanaging everything. Yeah. And we tend to do that because we want to be helpful. I think it's coming from a really good place. We want to be helpful. We want to be, we want things to go well. We want things to be very efficient. And that's great.
Yeah,
but we also want to create connection. So let's find little ways that we can create more connection. So yes, so we can toss the book because we got our 1 point out of it that we liked. And we can focus on some other things. But I'm glad you got through it.
I am all about figuring this out, by the way.
Are you?
Yes, because we do live in a very peculiar world where everybody's on the fence about what everybody's supposed to be doing
and what your roles are supposed to be.
Relationships at work, divorce rates are really high. Most women are the ones that actually file for divorce.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of scenarios that kind of come together, and you're like, maybe it's women that need to get changed, or maybe it's men that need to be changed. Masculinity's on the decline. We want to be more feminine. Traditional wives, we're talking about that a lot more. And if you scroll through your phone, it's just constantly people trying to tell you how to fix your relationship and have some sort of gunning point about what you can do. And people get attracted to that and they think, okay, that's going to solve my life. And the problem is it's very generalized. Everyone has this individual relationship they're working with, and your own relationship that you have to kind of hear all this outside advice on what to do. Right. So it'd be great if we could write a sequel to this book.
Okay.
And make it like just complete.
Yes.
Complete. Well,
The
all
woman-
these little thoughts
yes,
of
yes.
what can come together and help people. Like
Yeah.
really help people without.
Yeah. With a little more nuance to it.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
Love it.
More specific.
All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us today, guys. We will see you next time.